Hey guys, welcome back. This week we're going to discuss why you don't get what you want. You see it there in the title. I'm going to put a little bit of a spin on it though, I think. So this is in response to a question from a listener that I received about a tweet. The tweet is, there's a thing that exists that gives you whatever you want. If you want it for no other reason than you want it, religion tells you what it is and therapy shows you how to get it. Received a question about this. I think this tweet did pretty well, actually. I think that's one of the cardinal rules of social media is if a tweet does well, you make a video about it. But the question was, well, it wasn't really a question, it was a response to the effect of this tweet, this idea that you may not want what you really want. This is haunting. And the implication is, well, what if I'm going after something and I don't really want it? And I spend perhaps years of my life self-sabotaging, in this thing we call struggle addiction, because I'm going after something that unconsciously I truly don't want. And that's why it's haunting. So we'll talk about this, why it's haunting, and why when we really understand this concept that I'm going to talk about. I mean, if you listen to 2 seconds of any of my videos, you know I'm going to talk about healthy needs versus unhealthy needs. And why when we really understand this concept, it may still be a little bit haunting, but less than you would typically think. So the typical distinction that we make here in culture is you have want versus needs. There are things that you want but you don't really need. And when you think about it, the connotation here, well, let me just step back. And that seems innocuous. That seems innocent enough, that distinction between wants and needs. The problem is the connotation really makes it easy to rationalize away your needs as merely wants. It's a first world problem, and I really shouldn't talk about it. And who am I? There's starving children in Africa. Because ultimately your only needs are, food, clothing, shelter. But if you, carry this premise to the nth degree, you can really begin to, think, do I even need food, clothing, and shelter? Well, maybe I don't. Maybe not to the extent that I have now. And to back up again, I mean, okay, so something like a girlfriend or a boyfriend. You go, well, I want a girlfriend or a boyfriend. Do I really need it? And this can be used to rationalize away what you need to do in order to get a girlfriend or a boyfriend. Because you probably feel anxiety about either of those two things if you're somewhat normal to human. Right, but then you can go the step farther, which I was talking about, food, clothing, shelter. Do you even need that? Do you even need to be alive? Well, based on this premise, or the premise of this connotation, that you don't really need things that you want, then yeah, you can rationalize that, and people do. It's called suicide. So I think a healthier way to approach this is to frame it as healthy needs versus unhealthy needs. Example of this, well, a healthy need is something that you need or want. I don't make the distinction there. It's something that you want for no other reason than you want it, to harken back to what I say in this tweet. And an unhealthy need is something that you want because it covers up an insecurity that you have typically. So example here is a guy who gets a girlfriend. This is the one we go to here. Why do you want a girlfriend or a boyfriend? It doesn't matter. Do you want it because you see a girl as a way to connect, and she can help you improve your life, you can improve her life, and you do that through a healthy connection with her, becoming greater than the sum of your parts. You've got a great life, and part of having a great life is sharing that life with somebody else, because you're human. By dint of what you are metaphysically, I would argue, if you have a great life, you want to share it. That's part of having a great life. Or do you want a girlfriend to cover up the fact that you're a loser? Because you're getting sick of going to Bob Evans by yourself, sitting alone. I swear I'm not talking about myself in college. Right? Why do you really want a girlfriend? One need is healthy. The other is unhealthy. The healthy need, you're probably going to most likely get a healthy girlfriend. The unhealthy need, you're going to get BPD girl, and then you're going to blame society for it. Another example of this is when it comes to separation from your parents. Talked about this a lot on this channel. most recently, go to the stages of adult separation video that I did. And this comes up when we choose a career. Why do you want the career that you went after? Did you do it because you really want that career, because it was something that you're interested in, you've been interested in it for a long time, and also you're kind of good at it, and the connection that you make with people by doing something that you're interested in, being good at it, which implies that you help people, and the connections you make therein, is that why you do it? Or do you do it because it kept your parents happy, or probably more accurately, it kept your parents off your back? Did you become a doctor, lawyer, engineer, Jewish, Indian, Asian guys? I'm looking at you. Did you do those careers because it's what your parents wanted? You know, on the surface, it can look very similar. But underneath, one guy is going to have a much more fulfilling life and typically be way more productive than the guy who just does it to keep his parents off his back, or so he can finally feel good enough, or get the respect that he thinks he wants from his parents, or that he thinks he needs from his parents, right? So that's the distinction. And that's all an introduction to say this can be haunting, because how do you really know if you want something versus you're doing it just to keep your mom and your dad off your back? And this is why the listener says it haunts him. And I totally empathize with this. I've been haunted by this as well, and I think it's healthy to be haunted by this. I really want you guys to pause and go, well, why do I want the things that I'm going after? What's the purpose? What's the intention here? But you can fall into a trap here, right? If you combine, I think, this healthy impulse to be reflective, right? It's like, why do you pause before doing something that you're afraid of? Do you pause because you're reflecting about it, or do you pause out of hesitation? Because you don't want to be exposed, so to speak. And I think if we combine our anxiety with this idea of healthy needs versus unhealthy needs, and look, there's a thing that exists, we'll talk about what that thing is, that gets you whatever you want, if you want it for no other reason than you want it. When you combine some latent anxiety issues with that, and you can start to think, oh man, do I even want what I'm supposedly after? And this really comes up because, let's say so you get in a relationship with a girl, and it was for mostly a bad reason, because you felt like a loser. You were sick of going to Bob Evans by yourself and getting I was going to say Grand Slam breakfast. That's Denny's. Oh, okay, if you're going to go to breakfast somewhere by yourself, it's way less pathetic to go to Bob Evans as opposed to Denny's. But from personal experience, testing both of those two out, I did a lot of A/B testing there. Anyway, because you're sick of doing that, you feel like a loser, and maybe you wouldn't feel like such a loser if you just got a girlfriend, and that's why you got your girlfriend. Now you're in a relationship with this girl, and you think, oh, well, maybe I should break up with her, because now I'm learning about my psychology, and I realize I only got in a relationship with her because she was there as like a balm on this wound that I had. This festering wound of, I need validation from somebody else to feel like I'm good enough, so maybe I should just break up with my girlfriend. And let me be here to tell you that there is no need to be pure. I think your desire to be pure is another reflection, in my experience, and your desire to have pure intentions is another reflection of, or is another instance of, an unhealthy need. Because guess what? Your intentions behind your wants is never going to be pure. And even the healthy of us will want to get a girlfriend because we'll feel like less of a loser when we have a girlfriend. And that's totally there. It's always going to be there, pretty sure. Maybe there's some healthy guys out there who don't experience this at all. I haven't met them. I'm definitely not one of these guys. There's always going to be that little bit of a, less than pure intention in why you want to get a girlfriend, or why you want a certain career or make a lot of money, because it will get your dad off your back. And that's nice. But if that's the main reason behind it, then it's probably an issue. But otherwise, it's probably not that bad. I mean, what I tell guys is, think of it like an ice cream cone, especially in the context of girls. I think this is more valid in the context of girls. Think of it like an ice cream cone. If you go to an ice cream parlor on a Saturday, you're kind of looking forward to it, but it's closed. You're kind of bummed out, but it's not that big of a deal. You say, well, we'll go pick up some ice cream from the store, whatever. If you get pissed and you feel as like some kind of reflection of the resentment that you have against society, how everybody's out to get you, then you probably wanted that ice cream cone for nefarious reasons. You're probably using that ice cream to cover up, right? I mean, ice cream's great at that. Any kind of food or overeating that we do, it's a great way to distract ourselves from the existential pain that we're in when we don't know how to manage our emotions. So it's okay, right? There were maybe unhealthy, impure reasons to get the girlfriend that you have. The only question is, how aware of that issue can you be? How aware of those validations, of those validation issues can you be now? And how can you, well, in the context of this example, how can you communicate that with your current girlfriend? A lot of guys, they've had a girlfriend for 18 months and they ask, well, I don't know, like part of me wants to break up with her. Part of me feels like I need to stick with her. What do I do? And I always say the answer is always the same. The answer is always, well, learn what your issues are. Learn what your emotional issues are that cause the impure intention to get that girlfriend in the first place. Learn what those are. Learn how to talk through them. Become more aware of them, and then report back to me in 3, maybe 4 months. How do you feel about breaking up with this girlfriend now? You may not have a definite answer after 3 or 4 months, especially if this stuff is really embedded in there, but it's going to be way more clear. Maybe a darker example, just to prove my point, is there's different intentions behind having children. By the way, my son was born last week. Everybody's healthy. Thank you for asking. But why do you want to have kids? I mean, some people have kids to, feel less lonely. I mean, that's a pretty sad reason, but I think that's there for a lot of us. We have kids because we feel less lonely. Well, okay, so let's say you had children with your wife or husband because you felt less lonely, because the relationship, you felt it was falling apart. And the reason why you had children is maybe you would fix the relationship. Well, what do you do? Do you put your kids in foster care? Do you get rid of them? No, that's silly. What you do is, okay, now you're aware of it. And maybe you didn't get into this relationship for the best intentions. Maybe you didn't have kids for the best intentions. It doesn't mean you can't have a healthy relationship with your children now. And I think just the fact, even if you have that realization, dark though it may be, when you have that realization and are able to manage that issue, you will go on to have, I think, more than a healthy relationship with your children. So don't think like, oh, because I didn't get, because this need wasn't healthy for me at the time, and you may have achieved it, you need to, put it all behind you and move on and have a new life and do a sabbatical somewhere, volunteer for Habitat for Humanity for a year, or think you have to go live in Paris for a year. That's not the solution. The solution is, okay, what was this issue? What was this issue that caused me to get in this relationship, have these children, choose this career? How can I manage the issue now? And then what does that newfound awareness allow me to see now that I couldn't see before? And how you apply that newfound awareness to your life after that, I think when you do it well enough through proper therapy, it becomes self-evident what you need to do, or how you can, or what the next step is to rectifying this issue. So why don't you get what you want? Let me scroll down here. Why don't you get what you want is because you don't really want it. You don't want it. You want to be free of a feeling that you have because you don't have that need met, but you don't really want that thing. Right? And that's a huge difference. That is a big difference. You don't really want it. Man, I had a point there. What was I going to say? Why do you not want what you want? I think I just had a stroke. It'll come back to me. So what is this thing that exists? To go back to this week, what is this thing that exists that gets you whatever you want if you want it for no other reason than you want it? Religion tells you what it is. Therapy shows you how to get it. It's you. All it is, it's you. It's a well-established, developed version of yourself, an individuated sense of yourself. Same thing with individuation. It's not this place that we reach where you go, okay, now we're individuated and there's nothing we need to do and every decision we make is going to be perfect. It's a process you become involved with. Same thing with this. You're never 100% sure whether your intentions are pure or impure, but you can definitely become more aware of them. And the more aware of them you are, the more aware of your intentions that you are, over time, on a large enough scale, your life continues to move in the direction that you want for no other reason than you want it. Religion tells you what this is, a sense of self, capital S self. That's a big part of religious imagery and symbolism. The cross, the Star of David, the ones I talk about, I'm sure there's a bunch in Islam that I don't know because I'm not as well versed with that religion. But that's what church is. You go and you congregate with people, with the community, and you remind yourself of what you're after. You're after a sense of self, from which you can have whatever you want, if for no other reason than you want it. Therapy shows you the process to get there. And I would say it's like not even therapy if you're not engaged in this process, if you're not consciously engaged in this process, if you don't make this process conscious and say, this is what I'm going after. If your therapist says something like, oh, Jung and all that symbolism, the collective unconscious, that's been disproven, right? I use evidence-based therapy. If your therapist says something like that, I can pretty much guarantee you, right? It's not like it's improper therapy. It's just not even therapy at that point. And it can still be helpful to go somewhere and talk with somebody an hour a week. That can still be helpful. And maybe if you like the idea of, quote, evidence-based therapy, implication being all other therapy has no evidence to back it up, maybe that kind of therapy is good for you. But if you want more from therapy, you can reach out to me. We do free consultations, animusempire.com/schedule. If you don't want to learn about the therapy that I do and you just want to reach out to somebody, i.e. me, and talk through what's going on. If you just want feedback on one particular issue, if you're having obsessive homosexual thoughts and you're concerned that this might mean that you're gay and you want some feedback on that, just to talk to somebody about it. Or if you're into incest porn and you think, oh, does this really mean I want to have sex with my stepsister? Is that what this means? And you just want to run it by somebody, then I'm here to help. animusempire.com/schedule. Thank you guys. Remember that you don't get, the only reason you don't get what you want is because you aren't who you need to be to get what you want.